was not able to talk much during the last several days. Finally, I'm getting my voice back. And this week and next week, I will be talking about stewardship. And then we are going to start a new series on the 27th. And that series is called Confidence Building. I believe that as Christians, as followers of God, we ought to live our lives with confidence that God is going to take care of us. So we have put together the little invitations for you that you can pass on to your friends and maybe relatives and invite them to come to that series. If everybody were to do that, I think we would do pretty good. I feel that it is important for the church members to be able to actually put something into the hands of the people that you are working with, or your neighbors, or so on. So let me just give you an example. If you have a neighbor or a friend or somebody in your life who is in need of help, maybe they want to quit smoking, well, talk to us here at the church and we will get you the materials that you can pass on to them. Or any other topic. Maybe it's money management, maybe it's something that has to do with a family or marriage. If you talk to us about the needs that your friends and family have, then we are going to try and put into your hands the appropriate materials that you can give to them, along with a little invitation for them to come to church. So that's the plan for the next 6 or 7 weeks. And then we are going, in November, we are planning to do a series on prophecy, last day events. And at this point, there is several of us that are working on that series. And I think you are going to hear the material and the information that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else in any other church. So I hope that you will be here for that. We will give you plenty of heads-up information for that, so you will be prepared for that. Let's see. A couple of other big pieces of news is our radio program, I told you, is being picked up by a radio station in Indonesia and Fiji and Mariana Islands, and they are broadcasting it over there. I don't even know on how many stations. And we also just started talking with another radio station in Kansas City that is interested in carrying our program free of charge. They like the content, so pray about it. And hopefully that will start spreading a little bit as well. Money is something that preachers talk about a lot because churches never have enough money. There are always things that churches want to do. In this particular church, we are just finishing the building project, and we have a food bank and TV ministry, radio ministry, everything that you see around you on this 7.5-acre campus requires money in order to be maintained. I mean, constantly there are expenses and expenditures. We are coming into the winter months, so now we have to start shutting down the swamp coolers and sprinkler systems and getting up the heating system, and all of that takes money because you need people to come out and do that. So preachers always have a lot of excuses to talk to people about money. And that's not what I want to do today. Today and the next week, I want to talk to you about money management and finances and so on. But really what we are talking about is your relationship with God. So the question that I'm going to ask right now in the very beginning is this. And I don't care how old you are. I just want you to look back onto your life and ask yourself this one question. How do I live my life? Do I run it myself, or am I living my life in partnership with God? And there's the key question when we talk about money management, finances, and stewardship. Is God your partner, or have you taken charge of your life and then God just comes in whenever you feel that you need to put in a little something for God because of an obligation, sense of obligation, sense of duty? Or everything that you do is really done because you love God and you are His partner and He's your partner. So that's what I want to explore a little bit today. In Psalm 50, it says very clearly, God is talking and He says, I don't need the bulls from your barns. You remember back in the old days, they would sacrifice the animals to God. And God says, I do not need the bulls from your barns or the goats from your pens, for all the animals of the forest are mine, and I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. How many times have you read that verse? In other words, God owns everything. He owns wild animals. He owns the mountains. He owns the seas. He owns everything that's in them. How many times have you watched the program National Geographic or something, and you see the ocean and you see millions and millions of fish and all kinds of other animals? It all belongs to God. The point is, God does not need anything from you or me to survive. He doesn't need our gifts. That's exactly what He says here. I don't need your bulls from your pens. I don't need your goats. In other words, He's saying, do you think you're doing me a favor when you come and you sacrifice a bull to me? And we can, interpret it and say, do you think you're doing me a favor when you come to church and you put in your tithes and offerings? We can paraphrase that same verse and say exactly that. Do you actually think that we are doing God a favor when we put money into the plate? Think about it. Colorado is known for what? Gold and silver. There is gold in them hills, right? Who does it belong to? It all belongs to God. Nothing belongs to a human being. We are but the steward, but the manager. We are somebody who was given an opportunity to live on this planet. And by the way, do you realize that the chance of you being born on this planet is like 500 million times greater than the chance of you winning the lottery? 500 million times less. In other words, the fact that you're here, that we are here, is just an amazing fact. God provided that for us. He put us on this planet. He created this whole universe. Everything is His. Gold, oil, money, banks, power, everything is God's. And yet people feel and think that they are the owners. We own it. And we fight to keep it. And we fight to protect it. And we are going to kill somebody if they try to take it away from us. I know every bird on the mountains and all the animals of the field are mine. And then God says, if I were hungry, I would not tell you, for all the world is mine and everything in it. In other words, God does not depend on my generosity. He doesn't depend on what I'm going to give Him. And that's the point that we have to get through in our heads. We are here as managers. This church is not mine. It's not yours. Maybe you have been in this church for 40 years. It's not yours. It's God's. I'm a pastor, and I've been doing this for a long time. There is nothing that I own here. Nothing. Nothing. Not the blade of grass out there is not mine. It all belongs to God. This doesn't belong to the conference either. It belongs to God. Everything that we have, my car, my house, my health, it's God's. It's not mine. I just get to use it. I was just blessed enough to be in a position to live and to use it. So that's something that we really need to understand, that God is the owner and we are the stewards. Matthew 25, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and did what? Entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He didn't give it to them. They didn't own it. He entrusted them. He says, look, this is what I'm giving you to manage for me. I'm trusting you with this. And you take care of it. Good for me. And you know the story. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. What we have, what you and I have, is given to us in proportion to our abilities. That's what God says. That doesn't mean that He disrespects you or thinks less of you if He gave you less. What that means is He wants to see how you're going to manage what He gave you. If you're a young person, if you're 14, 15, 16 years old, maybe even younger, 11, 12, and you're thinking about going to school and you're thinking about becoming somebody in life and you're thinking about going to college and all of those things, you got to look at the assets that God gave you. He gave you the intelligence. He gave you the health. He gave you the brains. He gave you all of these tremendous assets. Now, what are you going to do with it? If your friends offer you pot and you become a pothead in a few months, what have you done with the gifts that God gave you? You have thrown them away. But if you use them right, then you become somebody one day in life. And then God adds to it, adds more blessings to it. If somebody gives you a gift and you abuse it, why would they give you another gift? They're not going to do that. And God is the same way. So you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, what are the gifts that God has already gave me? He then left on his trip, the master did, and the servant who received the 5 bags of silver, he began to invest the money and earned 5 more. How are you investing your life? What are you investing your life into? Some people are investing their life into watching 6 to 8 hours of television every day. That's their investment. And they know all about the Survivor and the island, and some people are investing their time into playing video games for 5 or 6 hours a day. And they're very good at it. And some people are investing their time into watching football and basketball games on TV all the time. And they're very good at it. They know every team, they know every player. They know more about the players on the football field than they know about their own kids. That's a phenomenon that we have here in this country and all over the world. What are you investing your time and your life, the precious life? The chance of you being born is so much smaller than of you winning a lottery. The fact that you're here is just an amazing fact. That you have a chance to walk outside of this church here in a few minutes and look outside and look at the universe that God has created. And you are a part of that. I mean, you are a part of that. I did a wedding yesterday up on the Lookout Mountain, last night actually. And we were up on that mountain looking over those beautiful hills, Rocky Mountains. My goodness. And the elk were walking down in the parking lot. You are here. You're a part of God's creation. Do you think that's by a chance? Do you think that's a mistake? Do you think that was just an accident? What are you doing with your life? Why are some of you broke? Why are Christians in general having a hard time with money and lacking and not being able to pay their bills? The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work, and then he earned 2 more. And then, verse 18, the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. That's the guy that's watching 8 hours of TV every day. That's who he is. He says, okay, in other words, if you're not doing anything with your life, you're basically saying, who cares? I don't respect the gift that God gave me to be on this planet. I'm just going to throw it away. I'm just going to have fun, do whatever I want to do, and who cares about the fact that God went out of his way to put me here. So if you're not doing anything with your life, you're literally sinning by disrespecting God. As simple as that. After a long time, the master returned from his trip, called him to give an account. Jesus is coming back, I tell you. And he's going to call everybody to give an account. And then some people are going to say what? Well, football game, you know. Broncos, I had to watch that, you know. And I love Broncos, you know. I do. But you can't go overboard on stuff like that. There is time for relaxation. And there is time for joy. And there is time to go to a football game. But there is also time to work and invest and save money and do things for the church and do things for God. There has to be a balance. And the servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 to invest. I earned 5 more. That's what he did. You're going to be able to say that to the Lord when he comes? Are you going to be able to say, Lord God, I really appreciate the fact that you put me on this earth and I went out there and I did something with my life. And I made a difference in the lives of the people around me, took care of my family, took care of my church, took care of my neighbors. I did my part, Lord, with your help. Or are you going to just kind of scratch your head and not know what to say? That's a question that each one of us is facing. God owns everything. He put us on this earth on purpose. He wants us to do something with our lives. If you're a young person like you guys are, what are you going to do with your lives? Let me tell you this. Do not choose to become a bum. Because some people, they do that. They just choose to become a bum. You know, invest into yourself. Learn. Study hard. Become somebody. That's what God wants you to do. Let me ask you a question. Mathematical question. If you're making $1,000 per week, how much of that $1,000 is God's? What? I didn't hear nobody. Oh, okay, good. We got a good audience over here. All of it. That's right. Some people say, oh, 10%, right? $100. No. All of it is God's. All of it. All of it. Everything is God's that you make. Now, I did a little bit of research, and this is what I've come up with. Many Americans will experience some level of affluence during their lives, and then a much smaller percentage of them will do so for an extended period of time. In other words, the chances are that at one point in your life, you are going to do very good financially. That's what this study, 44 years of data was pulled together, and this is what they found out. I'd like you to look at this. 12% of the population will find themselves in the top 1% of the income distribution for at least 1 year. In other words, there is a strong chance, if you're living in America, that one time in your life, you are going to have a tremendous year when you're going to start making a lot of money and things are going to be good. Now look at this next statistic. 39% of Americans will spend 1 year, in the top 5% of the income distribution. Now, so maybe you're not in that 12%, but you could be in that 39%. And then look at the next one. 56% of Americans at one time in their life will find themselves in the top 10% of the money makers. 56. And 73% will spend a year in the top 20% of the income distribution. So there is a strong chance that just about 73% of people in this room will at one time in their life be making what the top 20% of Americans are making. In other words, we live in a country where there is an opportunity to make a lot of money. And sooner or later, there is a strong chance that you will find yourself in that position. Why? Because you get a raise, you get a promotion, your wife is doing good, you're having a tremendous year. You're making a lot of money. There's the statistics that the researchers have looked at over a period of 44 years, and they are true statistics. Now, this information casts serious doubt on the notion of a rigid class structure in the United States based upon income. It suggests that the United States is indeed a land of opportunity, that the American dream is still possible, but also that it is also a land of widespread poverty. Because at one point in your life, you will also have a chance of experiencing the poverty when you will have a bad year. So these statistics, they go both ways. You will find yourself making a lot of money. There is also a chance that you will find yourself having a very lean year, and things are not going to be so good. America is a place where a large majority of people will experience either wealth or poverty or both during their lifetimes. Is that an exciting country to live in? That's an exciting country to live in. Because there is a chance that these kids, one of these kids that we have throughout the church here, will be a millionaire. A strong chance. But the question is, how long will they remain in that club of millionaires? Now look at some of these stories that I've looked at. How many of you have seen these riches to rags stories? 4 reasons why wealthy people go broke. And now these reasons can also be applied to you and I. Number 1, luxury and excess. And they gave several examples. MC Hammer. How many of you remember him? He was a famous, what was he? Singer, right? I just read an article that he earned $33 million. That's what he made. And then he went out there and bought the house for $30 million. And the house had all, everything. I mean, everything. The swimming pools, golf, you name it, he had it. And he went on such a spending spree that before he was done, instead of having $30 million in the bank, he owed $15 million to the government and went completely bankrupt. Luxury in excess. Buying things that you cannot afford. Assuming that the gravy train is going to go on forever. Assuming that big paycheck is always going to come in. And then you buy things that you really shouldn't afford. Mike Tyson, for Pete's sakes, he was buying white Bengal tigers. How much can one of those things cost? I mean, buying a $180,000 gold ring. Buying a $300,000 watch. They talk about a golf player who earned $30 million over his golfing career and blew everything, all of the money, on cars. Had over 100 cars that he bought. And obviously he ended up broke. It isn't just the celebrities who end up broke after coming into substantial wealth. Statistics published by 21st Century News indicate that 70% of people who have unexpected gains or win the lottery go broke within 7 years on average. Why? Because they overspend on vacations, cars, shopping, and other items without considering the inevitable fact that they will end up spending all of their money. Hey, I got $35 million in the bank. I can spend $100,000 on a car. One of these guys, I forget which one anymore, had an entourage of 200 people. Does MC Hammer, was he? It cost, they say that it cost him $500,000 a month just to keep that entourage happy and going. Does anybody here have an entourage? No? Do you have a few people that want to be your entourage? Okay, so excess and overspending. And number 2, poor investment choices. Burt Reynolds, a famous actor. Most of you don't, these kids don't even know who Burt Reynolds is. lost $15 million investing in a restaurant chain called Po Folks. My goodness, I can't even pronounce it. I would not go to that kind of a restaurant. I can't even pronounce its name. My goodness. Another guy, Wayne Newton, the famous singer, he bought a whole bunch of land in Pennsylvania because he thought that the legislature over there was going to approve the gambling in Pennsylvania. Well, they didn't. The real estate prices went down. He lost all of his money. He had to move out of his house where he lived for 50 years. So if a rich person like that can lose money in a hurry, what about yourself? And then Uncle Sam, people don't pay their taxes. Sinbad was famous actor, singer. Diane Warwick, and there are many others, people who just didn't pay their taxes, and then all of a sudden, it's either jail or borrow money from somewhere, but you got to pay Uncle Sam. After winning the jackpot of $13 million, one woman spent it all with her husband without even realizing the amount she needed to allocate for the IRS. Soon after, she found herself in a serious legal trouble for the tax debt, and to this day owes over $1.1 million to the government. How many of you are not paying your taxes on time? Don't even raise your hand. I don't want to know. I don't want the IRS to come after me. You got to pay your taxes on time. As a pastor, we had, when I started working for the conference, we had this option to hold on to our taxes and then pay them at the end of the year. So I was young and inexperienced, and they said to everybody, what do you guys want to do? Do you want us to withdraw the taxes from your paycheck and then you pay at the end of the year yourself? And then it's paid, or you keep the money and then you pay at the end of the year yourself. So I didn't know any better, and I thought to myself, I'll keep my money, and then at the end of the year, I'll just pay for it. Well, you know how that ended, right? I mean, the end of the year came, the tax bill came into mail, and I did not have the money to pay it because I spent it. And in January 2, after, January 1 is a holiday, January 2, I went into the conference office, and I said, you start deducting my taxes from my paycheck immediately. And I never had that problem again. People think that they can play games with the government. They don't want to pay their taxes. They come up with all kinds of excuses. And look, I don't agree with 90% of the times how our government is spending the money. But that doesn't give me an excuse not to pay. I'm a part of this society. I'm a part of this country. I want to drive on the good roads. I want people to have good health care. So I got to pay my share. And I think that's another thing that we as Christians ought to be faithful in. Because even Jesus says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Number 4, family, friends, and entourage. Wealth draws people in, and unfortunately, these people sometimes have their hands out. MC Hammer, you're right. He's the one, 200 people at the monthly cost of $500,000. Maybe you don't have that, but maybe you have people who hang around you because they've realized how generous you are. And they come around when your paycheck comes around. Then you don't see them later. That happens. Children. Nearly 60% of the time, a family's money is exhausted by the children of the person who created the wealth. And then this is a typical story of the prodigal son. He inherited the millions, he blew them away, and what happened? Things have not changed much in the last 2,000 years. The biggest reason family fortunes are squandered, experts say, is because the people who build the wealth do not pass along clear instructions on how to handle the money after they are gone. Cornelius Vanderbilt was the second richest American ever. At that time, he was worth $200 million. It's million, not billion, but at that time, it was more than what Bill Gates has now. You know what happened after he died? His children, especially his grandchildren, lived lavishly, building huge mansions in New York City, Newport, and elsewhere, and did little to preserve the fortune. By the 1970s, the family held a reunion with 120 members attending, not one of which was a millionaire. What do you teach your kids about money? Do you just give it to them? Who said yes? I heard that. It was a kid. Okay. See, the more money people win or inherit, the more they are prone to lose it. Why? Because they don't value it. So we have 10 lessons here about not ever being broke again. Recognize that all you have, God owns, and you manage it with His help. Let me ask you this question, those of you who are parents. If you see yourself as managers of God's money, how are you going to treat your kids with that money? Do your kids take advantage of you? Yes? No, I'm serious now. I'm not saying we should not take care of our children. But do your kids take advantage of you? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they put a guilt trip on you. Sometimes a 50-year-old son comes to you and wants to borrow money. And instead of giving him a good swift kick in where, you give him the money. And then he comes back again. So children can take advantage of parents, but when you recognize that it's not your money, it's God's money, then how are you going to handle that money in regard to your kids? Recognize that everything you have is God's. That's number one. Number two, make sure, and this is, I got to say this, make sure you don't save money by being stingy with God. You go out there and you blow money on dinner, go to good, macaroni grill or one of those, you spend $120, and then in church you're pulling out some quarters to give to God. How does that work? You lavish a nice big flat screen TV on yourself, but when it comes to God's house, we have to literally beg, to be able to fix something or build something or take care of something. It's not right. Do not be stingy with God. He's not going to bless you. I heard somebody say, a preacher was preaching, and he was talking about his kid, how they went to McDonald's, and his little son liked to eat fries, and he was telling this story in a sermon, and he says, I bought my kid all of these fries, large fries, He was just a little kid, and he was sitting there and eating, and he says, I went to take one fry, and my little kid, he was in that selfish stage, He grabbed the fries, and he says, no, these are mine. Don't be stingy with God. It's not yours, it's His. Give Him more than what you think you should, and He will give you back 10 times more. Make sure you don't disrespect God, number 3, by being undisciplined with giving back to Him. Oh, I'm going to take my offerings and tithes next month. Oh, I forgot this month. I'll do it to the end of the year. Why? Why do that? Why put yourself in that kind of a position vis-a-vis God? Why? You're not hurting me. I'm going to get my paycheck one way or the other. You're not hurting the church. Other people are going to step up. You're not hurting the conference, that's for sure. You're not hurting God. He already said that. Who are you hurting? Only yourself. Only yourself. Because God looks at you like that father looked at that kid with French fries, and he's thinking, my goodness, do you think I need your fries? Do you really think I need your fries? What would happen if that father got up from that McDonald's table and walked away from that child? What would happen to that kid? How long would he survive on his own? How long? Few days, that's it. And luckily the fathers, real fathers, they don't do that to their kids. And God is patient with us too. But remember this, you're not a 10-year-old kid. You're an adult with a brain and the responsibility. Don't treat God with disrespect by being undisciplined with what you know you ought to be doing. Number 4, work for your money. Don't be greedy for easy money. There are some people who they're always looking for another investment. They're looking for another stock. They're looking for another opportunity. They're looking for this stuff that comes in the mail to them, email, if you do this, then, and they're always wasting their money on all of these schemes that don't work. And eventually you lose more money than you ever gain. Work hard. That's a blessing. The fact that you can get up in the morning and go to work and you have your arms and your legs. It's a blessing. Enjoy it. Enjoy the hard work. My mother, 83 years old. You know what she says she misses the most with her old age? The inability to work full 8 to 10 hours every day. That's what she misses the most. She says, I want to do all of these things and I can't anymore. So now, if you're in that position where you're strong and healthy, then enjoy the work, the hard work that God gave you. Don't shy away from it. Don't be lazy. Don't be greedy for easy money. There is no blessing in it. Number 5. Let's get to the end so we can go eat. When the times are good, that's when you save money. You will have a chance in this country that God blessed so much. You will have a chance sooner or later. At one time, you are going to have a tremendous year. You're going to have a year when you're going to think that you made it. You're going to have a year when you're going to have a raise. You're going to get the promotion. Things are going to go good. Paychecks are going to be fat. That's the time when you save money, not when you spend it. You remember Joseph, the seven good years. What did they do during that time? They stored it up. They stored it up. They stored it up. Why? Because they knew the time was coming when everybody was going to be starving. If you have a good year, that's when you save money. Don't assume that that gravy train will be riding on forever, because it's not. It's not. Remember the statistics. 1 year in your life, you're going to do great. And after that, the 99% of the people are not able to repeat that the second year. So think about it. Number 6, and this is a hard one because people don't like this, they don't want this. Always live below your means. Some people say live within your means. I say live below your means. You don't need to live within your means. That means to me that you are always stretched to the limits of your paycheck. Live below your means. When you live below your means, then that means that you're putting a little bit of money aside for the lean days. I think that's a good advice. I didn't invent it. I think that's something that fits extremely well within the teachings of Jesus. Living below your means. Just look at the life of Jesus. Number 7, invest wisely. In this country, you have 401s and you have this and that with your work. Make sure that you have people that you can trust who are investing that money wisely for you. Don't look for these get rich quick schemes. They don't work. They just don't work. People who tell you, that if you invest $5,000, you're going to make $50,000 because there is gold in Nebraska, it's not going to happen. Number 8, pay your taxes on time. It's not yours. It belongs to the government. Don't wait until 3, 4, 5 years, and then all of a sudden you cannot dig yourself out of that hole anymore. Pay your taxes on time, every month. I think that's a good advice for every Christian. Number 9 is a hard one because it is personal. Do not allow family and friends to take advantage of you. Like I say, there are people who don't like to work, and we call them what? It starts with an M. Who can guess that word for me? M. Moochers. All right, good. Right? There are people like that. They will mooch off of you. My dad always had a bunch of stories like that. When people have money, everybody. He always told me a story about this one guy, Mike, who inherited a lot of money from his father, and all of his friends would come to his house and say, Mike, after his father passed away, they would say, Mike, let's go to the bar, let's party, And they would go to the bar, and the bar was full of people, and everybody in there would say, Mike is here, Mikey, Mikey, Mikey. He'd buy drinks for everybody. And guess how long that went on? That went on until he spent everything, had nothing, lost everything, lost his house, lost his everything. And the story goes that my dad told me, goes that his father, before he died, he says, I know you. You are kind of a loser, and if everything that I have, you're going to waste. That's what his father told him before he died. And he says, I tell you, there is one thing I don't want you to sell for no reason. I don't care what. He says, there is a field, one field, that I inherited from my father, and he from his father, and it goes back in our family forever. And there is a tree, oak tree, on that field. And I know that one day when you blow everything and you squander everything, you're going to be hungry and you're going to be cold. When that day comes, go into that field and cut down that tree so you can warm up yourself and your family. And you know what? That day came. All of his friends, every time they would see him, they would cheer him on. Mikey, Mikey. And he would just spend all of his money. And the day came when he had nothing. He had nothing, and then he remembered his father. And the next morning he went to cut down that tree. And guess what? Can anybody guess what happened? Inside of that tree there was a hole. It was a hollow tree. And his father left him a chest with money. I don't know how much, but a lot of money. And somebody in a few weeks heard that Mikey was doing well again. And they came knocking on the door. Mikey, come on, let's go to the bar. But he remembered something. He remembered that when he lost everything, all of his friends disappeared. He remembered that when he lost everything and he went into the bar by himself, nobody offered to buy him a drink. Nobody offered to bring a gallon of milk for his wife and kids. When he was poor and when they realized that he had nothing, nobody offered to bring him a loaf of bread. They stayed away from him. Now all of a sudden they knew that he was doing well again, and they came knocking. And he said, no, thank you. Enough is enough. Learn my lesson. Don't allow family, friends, people who are lazy, people who don't work, people who don't want to take care of themselves, don't allow them to take advantage of you. And number 10, make your kids work for it. Sorry, kids. Yeah, work for it. They need to learn the value of work. Because you know what? One day when you die, who's going to come to your house and feed your kids? You think your neighbors are? You want your kids to go to a food bank somewhere? You want your kids to go to a church and beg some pastor for food? Is that what you want? Teach them to work and teach them to value work. And then they will be able to take care of themselves. The list is there. You have it. If you miss something, I can give you the master copy so you can fill it. I believe that if a person follows this, it's right out of the scriptures. You will never be broke again. God bless you, and we will continue on this topic of stewardship next week. Amen.